Hello, and welcome to another episode of Speed Mooting Partners in Crime. I'm John.
And I'm Hayley.
And this is our regular weekly podcast.
But it's a little bit different today.
It's a little bit different, so you'll see that we're all on one screen. Normally we're both sat the other side of our dining room table.
With a bit more of an elegant setup usually.
Yeah, today it's just the two of us talking directly into a MacBook.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being, it's been a busy week.
It's been a very busy week. I went on a girls' holiday, got back late Wednesday night. You're about to go on your stag do.
I certainly am, yeah. It's crazy to think that in a few hours' time I'll be on a stag do.
Yep.
8:20 right now as we record this.
Mm-hmm. And you're off to...
Prague.
That's a
Prague.
good stag location.
That's not bad, is it? I was going to go to Hamburg, but Prague had better flight times, so... And to be honest though, Prague, it's a safe option. I know it's good. Been there before.
It's notorious for stags, isn't it? So
Yeah,
you know there's going to be loads of fun things to do.
It's going to be good. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. So shout out to the boys on the stag do. see you in a few hours.
Have they got a group name for the stag?
So the group chat was called JD-Stag. I didn't create that name on AI either because AI loves the hyphens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does.
No. Funny enough though, I've got a group chat for the groomsmen, and I called that the J team.
That's better. Yeah. The J team.
The J team.
That's cool.
I had the group photo for the stag do was basically my professional photo of me in a suit.
Funny.
Yeah. So long and short, the reason we're telling you this, normally we record our podcast in advance, and the podcast is released at 8:00 on a Friday. It's
6 o'clock on a Friday.
Oh, 6 o'clock?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
thing.
wow. Mm-hmm. Well, we're 2 hours and 23 minutes behind that, and we're recording it right now.
Please forgive us.
Apologies. Normal service will be resumed next week. We've got a nice little treat coming up for you in... I don't know if it's next week or the week after. We've got a vlog that we're going to be recording for you.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be good.
Yeah. I've got a vlog of the last national speed mooting competition to put out there, but I think we can say this, everyone pretty much knows that we do 2 national speed mooting competitions a year, and we are very close to launching our next one.
Yep.
So I thought that vlog will go really well with that launch. Take part in the next national speed mooting competition. If you're wondering what it looks like, here's a spend the day with us from the last one. So that will be coming out very soon.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, this was like the first time in a long time that you didn't start the podcast with "We are live."
Ah.
It was like becoming your catchphrase.
It was, wasn't it?
You didn't say it.
Ah, that's annoying. Oh well, we're live now.
Okay, let's name the episode.
Let's name the episode. So it's episode 64. So we've been going for some time, haven't we? 64, square number. Anyway. So don't know why I felt like saying that fact, but yeah.
I wonder what it'd be like, because remember the very first time we're going to do this podcast, we sat here in this exact spot and did like a quick intro, like, these are what our segments are going to be. But if you watch that back now, it's so like dorky and stupid and forth, because I never did any speaking on camera really before that point.
No, we're much more relaxed now, aren't we?
I think we are.
So episode 64, so I don't think there's a driver number that corresponds with that. So I thought, right, let's have a look. What was the 64th ever Grand Prix? And it turns out it was the 1957 German Grand Prix, won by Juan Manuel Fangio, with an overall time of 3 hours and 30 minutes. That'd be unheard of today.
Really?
Well, the maximum time allowed for a race is 2 hours now. So you couldn't be having... that was some going back in those days, driving those for 3 hours. Anyway, regardless, we're not naming it after him. He's had an episode. Finishing the race just 3.6 seconds behind him in second position was Mike Hawthorne. So for those who don't know, Mike Hawthorne drove for Ferrari, British driver, and also a world champion. So might have actually been the first British world champion.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So he's set the path. So Lewis Hamilton is probably hoping to follow in his footsteps, British driver, to win a world championship in a Ferrari. So let's see, can history repeat itself? So welcome to episode 64, the Mike Hawthorne special. So
What have we got on today?
So we're keeping this one nice and short.
Just a bite-sized episode.
Bite-sized, yeah. You're getting just your little dose of John and Hayley to keep you going today. You'll have more of us next week. So we'll do a bit of a small Q&A session. So we've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
Okay.
So we had a question the other day asking about whether we ever record ourselves, to watch ourselves back and improve our public speaking, advocacy, etc. And funnily enough, this was a question that came to me in the Advocacy Club, because the individual was asking, he really wanted to improve his pitch and his pace when he speaks, because, one thing I say is, if you're speaking, doesn't matter whether it's a courtroom, whether you're in the boardroom, wherever, be engaging, don't speak in a flat monotone voice. Mm-hmm. And so somebody asked me, well, do you ever record yourself to watch yourself back to look for that?
Yeah, because that's a piece of advice you always give, isn't it, on how to make yourself better? Record yourself, yeah.
And the funny thing is, I don't deliberately record myself, so I don't stand there. If I was practicing for a speech, I don't record it and watch it. And in fairness, I probably should. But what I did say was, we're constantly being recorded. We're doing a podcast episode every week. I'm always doing talks at the Advocacy Club that we record back. We're doing vlogs. So we're always, being recorded and our stuff's going online. So it's surprising how often we accidentally watch ourselves back, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, we pick things up. I mean, do you pick anything up about yourself from watching yourself back, Hayley?
God, yeah. So the first episodes we used to do, it was like talking too fast.
Yeah.
Giggling too much. I mean, I still giggle a fair amount on this podcast just because we make each other laugh a lot. Say like is my word, where you have a couple of your words, like is mine. And if it still happens sometimes, I might have been on last week's, and if there's a segment where I'm getting really, really animated and really into it, I'll start going, and and like comes out a lot for me, so I'm consciously don't say like all the time. But yeah, you do pick up things from listening to yourself, and I think it would be interesting to go back and watch a couple of our really earlier episodes, and then to see all the annoying habits that we don't do as much anymore, because I mean, I sit and edit these videos, so I go through and go, oh, that didn't sound great, I'm going to try and not do that next time. And so yeah, as you say, in a roundabout way, we really do. Yeah, it's a really great thing to do, particularly in the early stages of your career, to build up your public speaking and skills, and to break the bad habits early on. And I suppose if it was as easy to record yourself today as it was when we were both really junior, we probably would have done it.
Yeah, because you think about it, we're on the software we use. It's very easy to go on Zoom, Teams, whatever, record yourself on your laptop. You've got a phone there, you can stand there, film it. So it's dead easy. Recording equipment's just there. As you say, if we were to do it back in the day, it's just be getting a big, massive Cinecam out, and just.
I remember one instance. So this was I think it was a vacation scheme application, and it would have been second, third year of university, and I'm pretty sure it was Hill Dickinson. And as part of the application for the vacation scheme, they had pre-recorded questions, and you had to record yourself answering the question. Wow. And you had say, I don't know, 30 seconds for this one, 60 seconds for this one. And I can't remember, I think you could you watch it back and re-upload it? I don't know if you could or couldn't, but I just remember that was one of the first times I'd ever spoke to a camera and recorded myself. Yeah. And it was just the most awkward, weird situation. So I think it's something that you have to do more than once to get comfortable with it. Yeah. And I did not get that vacation scheme.
Do you know what though? It's a good point that you're raising there, because it is so weird and you don't practice for that. So when I got my job with the CPS, the application was, we had to do this 1 hour online test, and I think it was I can't remember if it was one problem question or a few questions you work through. And you had this scenario, and then once you got to the end of the written, well, I say written, it was typed obviously, it then takes you to another screen and says, right, here's a supplementary question. You got 5 minutes, record yourself. And it was just so bizarre.
It is, isn't it?
And I suppose when you think about it, that would have been early 2020, so before I was constantly going on and recording myself on Zoom and everything. So yeah, it It's the most bizarre thing ever. So yeah, that's another good reason to practice, because you're probably going to have pre-recorded
interviews
and all the rest of it.
I remember when we first started this podcast as well, and we were on about what type of setup to do, and whether, because we didn't have fancy equipment or any of them back then, if we had like noise issues and all kinds, didn't we? And it was like, well, maybe we should just go into separate rooms and then we can go on a Zoom call or whatever, and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, we really need to be like sat together and be looking at each other, so it's like a conversation rather than talking to yourself in camera, because it just doesn't have the same vibe, I don't think.
No, it doesn't.
And even now, as you say, we have to record videos all the time. If it's not a video with you and I talking and it's like just me, like I did the Introduction to Civil Lit course, didn't I, on the Community Hub. And I remember that, even that is like still bizarre. I have to think in my brain like I'm talking to someone, I'm not recording a video.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's so hard to be like, hello and welcome to the next speed meeting video. And I'm just like, it's weird.
Yeah.
So I have to just think, just pretend you're talking to people.
I was just thinking that, yeah. Try and treat the laptop as like a person. Mm. I wonder if you could put like a face or something on top of the laptop and pretend you're talking.
A cardboard cutout. Who would your cardboard cutout be?
I was just thinking that. Who would I want to talk to? Yeah.
A big face of like George Russell.
I was just thinking.
Well,
that,
George.
Let me tell you all about advocacy. George would put he'd have a PowerPoint in response. That's like the meme about him.
Is it?
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of George Russell, actually, so he was episode 63, and what happened? So we named the episode last week. Came out on the Friday, Sunday. Spoiler alert: he won the Canadian Grand Prix.
Wow.
So yeah. So speaking of which, if I think that must mean that Oscar Piastri is going to win a race in the episode corresponding with 81.
I
tell you what though, it's twice it's happened. Do you remember when we did the Esteban Ocon special?
I do.
And he was in like the worst car, or one of the worst cars, and he nearly won. Ended up finishing second. So yeah, there's something about us naming these episodes.
Like I said, we should 100% get free tickets for this.
Yeah, Toto, I know you listen to the podcast.
Obviously.
Just if you haven't got my address, DM me and send us the tickets.
Yeah, drop a comment below.
Yeah.
Everyone listening, tag Toto.
Yeah. We all need to tag Toto Wolf.
Anyway, so moral of the story, or answer to the question.
Yeah.
It is great to record yourself. No, we didn't really do it when we were learning, but we do it now in a very roundabout way. Not directly to improve our public speaking and advocacy, but it definitely does help us do that. And as John always says, we would advise you to do it, and do it often so it doesn't feel as strange.
Absolutely. Another question we got on the day was the significance of the rebuttal in debating. So we had a debating session at the Advocacy Club this week, and the way we run our debates, my own concept that I set up. So
is this different to like formal debates at university?
Yeah,
and things, the way we do it?
So the typical debating is parliamentary style, which I think is sort of 2-on-2. Sometimes you can have multiple teams, so you can have sort of up to 4 teams. You generally have 2-on-2, and then you have a lead person, junior, all the rest of it. Ours is dead straightforward, 1-on-1, 5 minutes for the first person, 5 minutes for the opponent, 2 minutes rebuttal for proposer, 2 minutes rebuttal for the opposer. So straightforward. And they're always non-controversial. So this week we were arguing about chocolate versus fruit. We're not we're tackling the big issues here, which is better. And someone asked me the question, so the rebuttal, what are you doing there? What are you dealing with? And I said, well, in short, you're dealing with anything you've not had the chance to address in your main submissions. So if you were proposing the motion, obviously you go first, present your 5 minutes, your opponent goes, then your opponent might say things that you've obviously not covered. So the rebuttal is your chance to box that off, respond to anything that's been said. And of course, if you are on the other side, just gives you, if you're opposing, just gives you a further 2 minutes just to address anything if you think you need to. It might be that, that there might be nothing that you need to address. But as I say, the key feature of the rebuttal is it's just that chance for you to deal with anything that your opponent's covered in their submissions that you think you need to box off.
This video is brought to you by Speed Mooting. We are an organisation that help aspiring and junior lawyers. We run online and in-person advocacy and mooting competitions. We do online advocacy and public speaking training, and we run lots of other events to assist people on their legal journey. To learn more, visit our website, speedmooting.com.
So yes, that's it. You know, keep it straightforward. Try and have a structure to it if you can. And the thing to remember is, you know, the time limits that you have for a debate, that's all they are. They're not targets, they're just time limits.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I just thought I'd address that point very, very quickly.
Did you debate at university?
I actually did join the debating society. It was in third year, and it was kind of, you know, when you're at that point of thinking, oh, I need to
Fill
build
the
up the
CV
CV. So we used to go to sessions on a Wednesday evening. It was a good little club, you know. I don't remember how many sessions I went to, but it was a good club. Yeah, I think I did pick up a few points on advocacy there. It did help me a little bit, because I you know, I didn't do much mooting at university, so I'd probably done maybe 3 moots in my life.
And that's why we set up.
That's exactly the reason I set up the National Speed Mooting competition, because it wasn't through lack of trying that I didn't take part, it was lack of opportunity. So that's why I set up the competition. And then likewise with the debating sessions at the Advocacy Club. So we have 6 debating sessions a year, and it's its own club effectively. There's just no opportunity for adult debating. So I remember when I'd finished the bar course and I was looking for debate societies that I could join. Once you finish uni, they just don't exist.
No, they don't, do they?
No.
They don't.
So we had obviously the one at the university, but I couldn't really join that. I graduated, I'd finished.
Yeah.
So yeah, once you're a graduate, there's just opportunities are just few and far between.
And that's the same for advocacy opportunities as well, isn't it? Which
Well,
again,
exactly.
particularly as you say, you know, once you finish the bar course as well, how do you practice advocacy? Well, that's why we set up the Advocacy Club, and that's why we opened up our competition. So anybody can take part up until the point when you qualify, obviously.
Yeah.
But Advocacy Club, we have qualified practitioners with us because, you know, the learning never stops, and it's like you always say, it's a skill that constantly needs to be practiced. So, you know, when you went to the CPS, for example, you didn't do as much advocacy as you would like.
No.
But fortunately, you were running the Advocacy Club, so
Yeah.
your skills were constantly kept fresh anyway.
Yeah.
But imagine if you had nothing, and then suddenly you crossed over to the bar and was like, I haven't actually done any advocacy for
I know.
3 years.
Yeah, that is a good point, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it's even good for practitioners that aren't getting the opportunities. So yeah, and that's the reason that we've got practitioners in the club, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point actually. If it wasn't for me running the Advocacy Club during those years,
You would have got a bit stale, wouldn't you?
yeah, it'd just dried up.
I'm sure it's is it like riding a bike? And
It's amazing how quickly you pick it back up.
but I imagine your first few hearings would be, you know, a bit painful.
Yeah, you're a bit rusty. So my first hearing at the bar was for MAJ, who I used to work for. It was a first appearance or case management or something. So it was something nice and easy to ease myself in. But yeah, it's amazing even just doing something as simple as that, like, you know, how rusty I was. And then, sorry, I should say that was a shout out to MAJ, because they're the people who gave me the chance. They gave me my training contract, and, you know, we still have a very, very good working relationship now. They've briefed me quite a lot. But yeah, it was crazy just how rusty I was. And then within a couple of days, I was doing a Crown Court appeal, and even on that, you know, appearing in front of the judge, you know, a little bit rusty. But by week 2, that was it, back into it.
Would you recommend, just going off on a bit of a tangent with this one now, so, you know, if it is your first hearing or something like that, you're coming back after a while, you're really rusty and you're really nervous, would you recommend telling your oppo or the judge that? I'm just thinking back to when, you know, when I shadowed you a couple of weeks ago, and there was a solicitor advocate that stood up and she said something, didn't she?
Well, she wasn't even a solicitor advocate, was she?
She was just a solicitor.
She was just a solicitor, yeah.
And she said something, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she essentially told the judge that she's not experienced in advocacy, and the judge was like, don't worry, we're all friends here, we're just having a conversation. Or so, he was really nice to her.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. That I think that really worked for her in that situation, because, as I say, she was a solicitor without right of audience, so she was doing a mention hearing in the Crown. I think it was for an appeal that was coming up.
Yeah.
And she mentioned to the judge, look, I've never done anything in the Crown Court before. And the judge was really nice. Brilliant judge, actually.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, very experienced judge. He actually, the same judge who gave me tips on advocacy years ago, actually. Yeah, and the judge said, don't worry, it's almost identical to the magistrates' court, which in fairness, it's probably easier than the magistrates' court in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think in that situation that was fine because she was well out of her depth.
Yeah.
Well, in the sense that she's obviously never done any Crown Court advocacy before.
She's in a courtroom full of barristers, and
and it was probably just a one-off sort of thing for her. And it was probably obvious because she was there in a suit, whereas everyone else is in a wig and gown, etc. But I think in general terms, I probably wouldn't go about that. I'd try and act confident.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. That would be my approach. But obviously, I'm saying that it worked fair in that situation. So that was perfect. Yeah.
And I suppose there'd be nothing wrong. Well, I don't know. Again, you can tell me whether this is right or wrong. But if it's your first year and you're like, okay, not going to tell anyone, I'm going to do my best, and you get really stuck or you fumble or something, like just saying to the judge, forgive me, my honour, this is my first appearance, and they'll be like, oh.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, do you know what? It's funny you should mention that, because I remember my first ever court hearing, first ever court hearing once I was a qualified solicitor, and it was first appearance on a drug drive case, and I went into the CPS room and had a chat to the prosecution lawyer, and I mentioned to him, it was my first ever time in court, and he was dead nice about it. So you'll find most practitioners are quite nice, actually. So you can probably mention it to your opponents, and they'll be okay with you.
I suppose it's one of them, isn't it? It all depends on who your opponent is and who your judge is, because most of them will probably be like, oh, okay, I'll help you out, I'll go easy on you.
Yeah.
Some of them will be like, aha, it's early payday for me.
Yeah.
And I can imagine like some judges, if you're like, forgive me, this is my first appearance, will be like, well, you've been trained for this, haven't you? Like some of them won't be nice, just there's a whole variety of people.
Yeah, I think get a feel, read the room, as the kids are saying now. Find out whether your oppo or your judge are particularly frosty. If they're looking nice, tell them. If they're a bit frosty, I think just keep your powder dry. Because that was what I was quite lucky. I had a nice opponent. That lady, she was nice. She was lucky that she had a nice judge. Mm-hmm. You do get it when you get some miserable opponents in court.
It's almost like putting it to a real life scenario. When people learn to drive and they put the provisional plates on the car, I always think, oh, why'd you do that? Because everyone's just like, oh, this person can't drive, and they just assume you're going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Just pretend you're like a really experienced driver, and maybe no one will know.
Who knows? Yeah. Who knows?
Anyway, shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Did you have a very brief learning the law segment?
Yeah, very brief. I thought, we've been talking about, basis of play, things like that. I thought to talk about the pre-trial review, because we've never really talked about that before.
Okay.
I don't think anyway. So very briefly, just talking about that. So, pre-trial review comes up in Crown Court proceedings. So you have your first appearance in the max, where you may or may not enter the plea depending on the charges. You then have your PTPH, which is your first appearance in the Crown. It's when the client is arraigned, defendant is arraigned, I should say. So they'll enter pleas to all the counts on the indictment. You'll set out a date for trial, hopefully. You'll set out all the dates for disclosure, service of evidence, service of defence statements, etc. But then sometimes what might happen, and different courts have different approaches on this, is they might list what's called a pre-trial review, normally a couple of months or maybe a month before the trial. And the whole purpose of that is you come back and all, the defendant's normally there, and the prosecution and defence lawyers turn up. And the whole purpose is just to review the case, see where we're up to. Have the prosecution provided all the disclosure and evidence in line with stage 1? Has the defence served the defence statements in line with stage 2? Because defence statements are compulsory in the Crown Court, and no doubt we'll talk about defence statements in full detail. Are there any outstanding disclosure requests? So have the defence requested anything and that the prosecution hasn't provided? Are all the witnesses available? Are they definitely going to be turning up? Are there any issues regarding that? Is there anything outstanding in terms of any bad character applications, special measures, hearsay applications, etc.? is the trial actually going to run? Is there any possibility of any resolution on this? So it's literally just to review everything and just make sure you're actually working towards that trial date and you can be effective on that date.
It's a really good idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it just, it saves everyone the time and cost of getting to the trial and not being ready.
Yeah, it forces everyone to get their heads together because, as you're aware with litigation, things can get missed, emails are sent, letters are sent. It forces everyone to come together and say, right, what is outstanding? What do we need to do on this? How do we get this and progress this and get it ready for trial? Mm-hmm. So they're effective. And sometimes that you come to court and you say, everything's fine. And it's literally a 2-minute hearing. Sometimes there are outstanding things. The judge sets further directions. They might list further mention hearings, etc. But yeah, it's a good way of just making sure that everything's focused and we're all ready for trial. Mm. Yeah. So just a little learning the law segment. So it's an additional hearing that can occasionally be slotted into Crown Court proceedings.
And who would typically carry out the pre-trial reviews? Is that usually something that the trial counsel does, or is it something that you could be doing that's a really junior advocate?
So ideally it should be trial counsel, because that way, they know the case inside out and they can address any potential issues, but it's not always essential. So sometimes you might find, if trial counsel's unavailable, it will go to somebody else.
So could it go to a pupil or someone really new to chambers?
Yeah. So sometimes you might find that you might be really junior and you'll do the pre-trial review on something quite senior, not something you'd never do the trial on at this stage, but you'll do a pre-trial review just to cover something. So it's a good way of you getting a little bit of exposure to higher caliber work, and if you got that as a return, it's another way of you making connections with solicitors, etc. So yeah.
Do you want to tell people quickly what a return is, just in case they don't know?
Yeah, so a return is, so let's, if you're in chambers, let's say, there's loads of barristers in your chambers, one barrister gets a case and, let's say it's listed for the 10th of December or what have you, and then gets closer to the trial date and something else slots in and, for whatever reason they're unavailable, they can't do it. Chambers then will divvy it out to someone else in their chambers who are available. I mean, sometimes there might be no one else in their chambers that's available, so it goes to another chambers. But yeah, so effectively it's barrister ends up being double booked, which unfortunately happens all the time with the way listing is in the Crown Court. And then that means that case ends up going to somebody else, and that's what a return is. So when you're really junior, it's a good way of building your practice up, because...
It's probably the way you get most of your cases, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because, if you're straight out of pupillage, solicitors are not searching you. They've not got that relationship with you. So you get a case from somebody else. Falls down the ladder, comes to you. You do the case, do a good job. Solicitors go, oh yeah, that guy did a good case. Yeah, Hayley Crombleholme, she did a good job there. Let's send them more briefs.
Yeah. I seen something on LinkedIn the other day and I thought that's interesting. We talked about building your brand and your profile when you're starting out as a barrister. And somebody did like a LinkedIn post, like, I've just started at such and such chambers, I'm available for instructions.
Very clever.
I wonder if that must
it's fairly common, though, yeah.
Is it?
And you see chambers doing it as well, and you say, you often see it when it comes to the start of second six, it goes, oh, such and such is completing their second six, they'll be available for instructions from.
I suppose it's really good as well if you've got a really good network.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn as well, because they go, oh, John Duff's there now? Oh, I didn't know. Okay, yeah. Put him on the list, we'll instruct him for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Anyway, we've been recording for nearly half an hour, haven't we?
So much for a 10-minute podcast.
I know. It was meant to be a quick hello, and you've ended up with a full episode, pretty much. So, we hope you've enjoyed this one anyway. I've enjoyed recording it. Have you enjoyed?
I've enjoyed recording it.
If you're still listening at this point, comment stag do. Bonus points if you can get an emoji of a stag.
Yeah, there's got to be a stag or a deer. Anything with antlers will
Anything with antlers, yeah.
You'll get the points, yeah.
Right, brings us to the end. We'll update you on all of the antics next week. Cheerio.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Enjoying our videos? Then we'd be super grateful if you could take a moment and subscribe to our channel.